This is Show Up as a Leader, a show from People Forward Network, helping you maximize your positive impact on the world by becoming your best, fully authentic self.
Hey everyone, it's Rosie. I'm super excited to have my friend Chris Johnson bring her new series, The Leadership Pause, to the show. In this series, Chris is going to unpack what it means to be fully human and access the best of who we are as leaders. And each episode is going to include stories, what she refers to as nerd science, which just is music to my ears. And she will always give a deliberate practice that we can try on at the end and apply so that we can show up as more embodied learners and leaders in our life. Take a listen.
How's your regulator? Overloaded or running smoothly? My dad loved his cars. Outside behind the barn on the farm where I grew up, he had old cars he's claimed he'd fix up one day. There was a 40 Ford Coupe, a 56 Mercury Montclair, and a 1963 bright red Ford Falcon convertible that he and my mom took across country to Nova Scotia for their 25th wedding anniversary. These were amazing. He never got to all the cars, but he loved collecting them. And I remember snippets of conversations over the years about how the regulator wasn't working on his tractor or was bad on his Ram pickup truck and needed to be addressed. I didn't really understand what he was talking about, but became much more interested as I approached 16 and I wanted to get my driver's license. He and Mom had offered to get me my first car, a 1963 Chrysler New Yorker, from an elderly lady in the community who had put only a few miles on it. It was a light blue tank with a square steering wheel and push buttons to turn on the radio. And because it was so big, I could fit at least 6 friends in it. It was great fun. Eager to get my driving permit, one weekend I asked Dad to take me out driving. When we got back home, he offered an overview of all things car-related. A, how to check the oil and fluid levels. B, how to locate the correct PSI on the door jamb for the tire's energy levels. C, how to check the air in the tires so they registered somewhere between 33 and 36 PSI. He put a fine point on the air in the tires and keeping them constant, informing me that you get better mileage that way, kiddo, which is a key point. So take note. He also thought it was time for me to learn how to change a tire, and he instructed me in all the steps first, and then I had to do it. So here's the steps. Engage the parking brake. Second, get the jack from the trunk and grab the spare tire while you're at it. 3, place the jack under the car and raise it up. Put a block to make sure it doesn't move. 4, remove the hubcap. 5, loosen the lug nuts with some elbow grease, Chris. 6, have the spare tire handy. 7, then switch out the tire and put the lug nuts back on and use that elbow grease and lower the jack. And oh my gosh, I finally did it. I remember feeling so proud. It had only taken me about an hour. Dad, look. He smiled, but then he told me, no, you're going to go ahead and do it again. I was so mad at him. I was so mad because I thought I had mastered this, right? He said, no, you have to do it so that when you actually get a flat tire, you know exactly what to do. So you're going to do it again. I did it 3 times that afternoon. I was so irritated by the end, but I digress. Regulators and alternators are essential for a car to function well. And remember, Dad would often complain about that. I wish, however, that Dad had taught me more about how alternators and regulators actually worked and how to know when they needed to be adjusting. Can you guess why? If the input voltage, energy, to the alternator in your car is too high, it can overload the electrical systems. If it's too low, it could shut down the systems altogether, draining any remaining charge that's there. This is where the regulator comes in. The regulator ensures that the alternator maintains a steady sweet spot of voltage between 13.5 volts and 14.5 volts. enough constant voltage to recharge the battery without overloading the electrical system of the car in its component parts. Enough constant voltage to recharge the battery without overloading the car's electrical components and circuits. Of course, we're not cars, but our inner regulator, homeostasis, is what keeps our internal systems, body temperature, oxygen levels, blood sugars, and pressure, all of that in dynamic play. Essential when we're at work, certainly when we're in a leadership position. Homeostasis is characteristic of all living things. Without it, we'd be unable to adjust to the constant changes both around us and within us. Homeostasis is a self-regulating process by which biological systems tend to maintain stability while adjusting to conditions that are optimal for survival. And in our day-to-day crazy VUCA world today, we want to have a stable homeostatic response. Yet our homeostasis can get thrown off when our energy is too high or too low, like when we're overly stressed, impacting things like our blood pressure, oxygen levels, and sleep, which then impact our interpersonal relationships, which then impacts our ability to get work done, and you can see where I'm going. It's feedback in the homeostatic system that regulates our body's response to a stimulus, affecting the original stimulus. So, for example, you can think of a time when you experienced a chilly draft. Maybe the window was open and a storm was coming. So what you did is you either got up and closed the door, or maybe put on a sweater or cardigan, something like that, right? Negative feedback occurs when the response to a stimulus reduces the original stimulus. So negative feedback coming in through the breeze to the door, and it reduces it. So I close the door, I reduce the wind, I'm no longer chilly. Positive feedback occurs when the response to a stimulus increases the original stimulus. You catch it, right? Because the internal and external environments of a cell in our bodies are constantly changing, adjustments must be made continuously to stay at or near the set point, just like a car regulator keeps the voltage between 13.5 and 14.5 volts. Like Dad said about keeping constant air pressure in the tires because, quote unquote, you get better mileage that way, kiddo, we need our internal regulators to be in tip-top shape to function well, combat record levels of stress, prevent burnout, and provide a steady stream of energy for daily life and certainly for leadership. Now, in the past months, I've shared a lot about energy maintenance, how it impacts our presence, how we handle triggers that then impacts our moods and emotions, and our ability to take one another's perspectives, essential for collaborating in the workplace, not to mention with family. But all of this is of little use. All the information about energy and energy maintenance and regulators, all of that's little use if we don't put it into practice. Like my dad, who made a fine point saying, Chris, you need to have scheduled maintenance to keep the whole engine going. So I've promised always to share a practice. This month's practice is energy regulation. So here it is. Your energy is the quality of vigor, vitality, zest that you have each day, your get up and go. It's important, as you just heard me say, to keep your regulator working properly, your homeostatic balance, so that you can maximize your energetic mileage. The 4 areas that you can zero in on to check that your regulator is working properly include your mind. So then we're going to call that thinking, your body, your emotions and mood, and your spirit. The goal of this short energy audit is to increase your awareness of changing the energetic levels throughout the day so that you can regulate as needed. Minimally, you'll want to continue this audit for 7 days, though for optimal benefit, you may wish to tune in and record this audit for a couple of weeks so you can look back and say, hey, what did I notice as I looked at this over the last couple of weeks? So you might want to grab a notebook, keep it by your nightstand or somewhere on your desk. So to prepare for this, in just a second, I'm going to ask you to take 3 deep cleansing breaths. But first, I want you to conduct a brief body scan to check in with yourself. So as you're standing or sitting, preferably standing, just bring your attention to your body, feeling your feet on the floor. And as you take a breath in, breathe in from your feet as if you can do that, all the way to the top of your crown of your head. And you're just checking in. How is it going? Do you have any kinks or pains or whatever? You're just noticing what's going on today with your energy in your body. And from there, as you prepare to take the audit each day, and as you do this, by the way, you can do this in short order, probably in a minute or two. So it'll take me longer to describe, but once you get the hang of this, you can roll with it. As you're standing or sitting here, I want you to take 3 deep cleansing breaths in through your nose for a count of 4. And out through your mouth for a count of 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. That longer out breath allows our parasympathetic nervous system to downregulate, and you'll feel the difference with 2 more of these deep cleansing breaths to the count of 4. And the out breath for the count of 6. And last breath in to the count of 4 through the nose. And out through the count of 6. You're cultivating both awareness and resonance with what's important to you. And you're learning about your energy systems. So after you've taken these breaths, notice your physical sensations. Temperature around you, inside of you, is it hot or cold, stuffy, damp? What about pressure? Is there any gripping, tightening, cramping, holding? And what about movement? Pulsing, streaming, coursing, heart beating. These are all physical sensations that you can zero into as you take those 3 deep breaths. So make a note of what stands out to you most and just jot it down in your notebook. Include in that notebook how much sleep you had and the quality of that sleep, like the PSI on the door jamb for the tires on the truck or my car. And you might jot a note beside it. Was my sleep settled, deep, light? You really want to tune in to the sleep quality as well as energy quality. So the second thing you'll write in your notebook are your first thoughts in the morning. What do you wake up thinking? Are your thoughts inwardly focused, stuff you have to do, how your body feels, etc., or outwardly focused, work, kids, projects? Are you waking up in a blamey sort of thing, like, oh, I got to do this, and it's really her fault it didn't happen? Or is it open? It's like, okay, I'm going to meet the day. There's no need here when you're assessing and noticing your first thoughts in the morning to judge them, simply to notice the thoughts and hold them lightly and then jot them down. Third, you want to check in with your heart. So this is moods and emotions. Might be useful to put your hand on your chest and maybe one on your belly just to kind of tune in to what's actually going on with your heart. Like, what do you care about? What emotions are up for you? And of course, they could be lots of emotions. Here's an example, though it's not an exhaustive list. Trust, ambition, resentment, confidence, resignation, curiosity, confusion, hope, sadness, jealousy, compassion, eagerness, regret, gratitude, or joy. Lastly, we want to check in with your current energy level and then ask us a question. And I put this as a spiritual practice because energy, the breath, is we're inspiring. We're taking energy and life in with our breath, and then we're exhaling it. So just want you to check in with what's your current energy level now. And do it like on a 1 to 5 or 1 to 10. And ask yourself the following. Is this my sweet spot? Like the proper PSI on the tire? And if it is, just notice what it feels like. If it's not your sweet spot and you want to adjust it, your homeostasis to your sweet spot, you might ask the question, What might I choose to do to bring it into my sweet spot? What's important to me today to take action on? My invitation to you is to take on this practice of energy regulation, be curious, and then learn and apply that learning to your leadership. Because who we are is how we show up as leaders as well. I'm certainly interested in what opens up for you as you take yourself on. And as you can imagine, we're just scratching the surface. So in the show notes that takes you to my website, or you can reach out to me on LinkedIn. There's a lot of information there and a lot that I cover in my book, The Leadership Pause, that you can find over on Amazon or at your favorite bookseller. And you can head on over to the website, q4-consulting.com/leadership advantage quiz to get a better feel for how your energy is showing up in your leadership. As we sign out today, remember, when we're attuned to the moment at hand, to our energy, we can regulate it, be present to whatever it holds, and make our best contributions. This is power.
I'm Rosie Ward, and this is Show Up as a Leader. To learn more, head over to peopleforwardnetwork.com and, of course, hit that follow button.